Hi guys, Muskan Agarwal here again. So in last few videos, we have been discussing about a lot of components like load balancers, DNS, and IP address scaling, and everything. Like we have understood a lot of concepts. Now let's keep everything in one place and understand how everything works in the backend or how everything works at one place in the real world. Right. So let's, in this video, we will be discussing about an example wherein you take any web browser like Chrome or Safari or any of the web browser and you just put google.com. You just write down any URL in the web browser to go to the particular page, right? So what exactly happens in the backend to fetch you the data for the URL or for the input you have given to the web browser? So let's understand how all the components which we have studied in the system design till now, along with the encryption thing that we studied in the cryptographic playlist, how everything comes into one picture, right? So before getting started, if you haven't watched my all videos in the system design playlist as well as cryptographic playlist, I would suggest to go through that. If you have enough knowledge about load balancers, TCP, IP connection, SSL, encryption, and everything, so you're good to go ahead, right? So let's start. Let's get started. Now you have opened any web browser, Chrome. You have just typed google.com. So now what that request the request like google.com, this client request will be served to DNS, domain name system, as we discussed in our first video. Through that DNS, what will it fetch? It will fetch IP address to the server's IP address, because all machines work on IP addresses. Communicates through IP address. Right. So the google.com request will go to DNS. DNS will fetch your server's IP address, like the Google server IP address it will fetch. If not in DNS, it will go to ISP, Internet Service Provider, and it will fetch you the same server IP address, because that is the way you communicate to the server. Once you get your IP address, now what will your web browser is a client to that particular server, that is a Google server. So what will it do is the client will send a acknowledge request to server, Google ka server, ki okay, I am trying to make a request to your server, please acknowledge my request. Now Google server, after validating your identity, everything, it will send a acknowledge sync request back to your client. Ki okay, I have accepted your request, go ahead and start the communication with me. Right. So client, once validating the server's identity, how it is verified through certificate and keys. I have discussed that too in my encryption videos in the cryptographic playlist. Please go through that. So once client accepts the server's response, it finally establishes a connection between client and the server with acknowledged request, and one TCP or IP connection is opened up, is established between the client and the server. How it is established? Again, validating the client's identity, server's identity on both the ends. And once these identities are validated, are verified, then only a TCP or IP connection is established between the client and the server. Otherwise, they will not interact with each other. One of them will reject the request to whoever is rejecting. So also just remember, only one TCP IP connection is opened up between the client and the server, and now the complete communication is done on one single connection. Like one connection is established between the client and the server. Now the whole communication, like read, write, anything, will be done through this one connection itself. It won't be opening any other more connection, because each connection takes more memory, more CPU usage. Right, it's kind of thread, you understand. If you have bit knowledge of multi-threading, so you would understand that each connection would be running on one thread parallelly. So it will take memory usage, good CPU usage, CPU time. Okay, once a TCP IP connection is established between the client and the server, now server might have certain firewall rules on its end. So client has to pass through that firewall rules in order to enter the server area, in order to communicate or in order to read any data from the server's end, it has to pass through the firewall rules. These are some security rules in order to prevent any security like attack, man in the middle attack or any DDoS attack or anything on server end. So there are certain rules mentioned over the server in order to like just prevent security breach. Once firewall rules are passed on, it entered the server, the request. Now HTTPS request begins. Again, if you would have gone through earlier videos, you would know that HTTPS is an encrypted request. Right, it's a secure form of request. Why and how? Because it uses SSL or TLS communication internally. Communication, or we say encryption. It uses SSL or TLS encryption internally. This encryption work on keys. And when is the key exchanged? During the TCP or IP connection, when the certificates are exchanged. I know it's a lot of things. If you would have gone through my earlier videos, it would be an easy concept to understand. Otherwise, it will be like really difficult to understand what is SSL, what is TCP, and everything. So just please go through my earlier videos. Now, once a connection is established, firewall is passed on. Now the communication is happening through HTTPS using SSL or TLS encryption method. Right. So it will go on. The communication will work. Now the request has reached to the server. And in the last video, as we discussed in previous videos, we have discussed about the concept of load balancers. So load balancer, the client does not directly communicate with the server. There is a load balancer on the server. This is the Google server. Right. Before that, there will be a load balancer. And whatever HTTPS request is coming will be going to the load balancer. Now load balancer accordingly will distribute that or will redirect that request on the available servers or the active servers who can honor this request. Right, it will redirect your client request to any of the server active. Cool. So once the load balancer has redirected your request to any server will now either go to the cache or it will go to the database. Right, server will either go to cache or database. Like it will check cache, cache method we haven't discussed. We will go through that in the later videos, but it will go to the database to fetch your whatever data you have requested for. If it is in the cache, then it will be taking the response from the cache and redirecting it to you. Otherwise, it will go to DB, fetch your data, and then processes, optimize it, and then create a response to send back to your request. Right. Now there is another component, DNS. We have not studied about this as well. Not this DNS, sorry, I'm really sorry. It's CDN. It's content delivery network. It's similar, not similar, but it's content delivery network. Yeah. It's kind of DNS, like domain name system is a third-party service provider. Same way, the CDN is also a third-party service which is provided by multiple providers, and it is used to render third-party content on the user dashboard, user profile, or user screen. Right. It stores all the HTML, CSS, like these are the static contents, which does not change much. While the dynamic content, that is the user data, changes with each user request. So it has to be fetched through the database and it can't be stored into the CDN. So CDN stores the static content, like server. Take all the static content from CDN, right, plus dynamic content from the database, and it clubs the static as well as dynamic content and forms the response, like a JSON response, and send back to the user request, HTTPS request. So this is how you get your request from the server. It's like a lot of things, it's a kind of big process, but you see the response in a matter of milliseconds. So this much processing is done on the backend side to fetch any a simple URL response to your screen. I'll just summarize all the factors over here. First was once the DNS or IP address fetching of the server, any server. Second, a TCP or IP connection is established between established between client and the server. Third, once a TCP or IP connection is established, firewall rules has to be passed in order to get into the server, or in order to just send the request to the server end. Once the firewall rules are passed through, an HTTPS communication begins using internally what? HTTPS communication begins using SSL or TLS encryption, right? And then the server fetches the data from query the data or fetches the data from DB or cache, optimize it, then it take static content from CDN plus it take dynamic content from database or cache. Let's keep it here, and then it club the static and dynamic content, and it renders as JSON response. So these are the steps that takes place whenever you type any URL into the web browser. I hope you understood this example. If you have any doubts, please do drop in the comment section. Also, please do like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.